Good horse, I think Norman again knows quite a few black horses. He was here. Right, here we go.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome everybody to this meeting of the Central Otago District Council. Good to see almost all the councillors here today. Noting that we have Deputy Mayor Gillespie online. We'll begin the meeting with karakia led by Martin.
Good. Hua te harakiri. Kia te kamako e tō. Ana e whiaha I Aotea mea nui. I haha te mea nui o te ao. Makau e ki ato. I tangata, he. If you pluck the heart of the flax bush, where will the bellwood perch? What is the most important thing in this world? I tell you, it's the people, it's the people, people.
Sure, absolutely right. We have apologies from Councillor Claridge. I'll move them and Tamer will second them. Those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. And first up, we have public forum. Colin Faulkner. Welcome, Colin. The floor is yours. You can stand or be seated. We're all seated, so there's no need to stand. Welcome.
Yes. This is in regard to a resource consent for a subdivision. I don't and just turn down. I'll just read through this, and it's pretty self-explanatory. I sent an email to all councillors with information regarding what I thought would be a council meeting on the last Wednesday of March. I sought information regarding what I believed would be the council meeting on the last Wednesday, March, despite sending 2 emails, both on Tuesday before the Wednesday of the last Wednesday of the month, as recommended by CRDC's website, and even visiting the council office. After 3 weeks, I have received no response or the promised phone call regarding the agenda. Feeling unheard and frustrated, I turned to New Zealand Planning Institution to review the hearing panel's decision-making process. The lack of transparency and communication from CODC compelled me to seek an external perspective. Today I wish to review the planning department's part of this hearing panel's decision at this council meeting. The most disturbing aspect is the way the council planners present their evidence. It's not a matter of fact, but it includes lies and manipulation of the truth. Regarding my resource consent application, the council consultant planner, Mr. McIntosh, said it's clear that the surrounding area is generally capable of accommodating the proposed increase in density and subsequent increase in domestic activity, to the extent that the adverse effects on the local character and amenity will be minor. The hearing panel changed that to they agreed with Mr. McIntosh and changed it to more than minor, for no reason other than, I don't know, to get through their decision. Although not, I'll read that again. The local character amenities will be minor, although not insignificant. Moreover, in the absence of any large balancing lots immediately adjacent to the site, the impact of the proposal on the site's immediate neighbours becomes more pronounced. Now, I'll read that again because it's kind of obviously wrong. It's just another manipulation of the facts. They talk about the immediate adjacent to the site. that there's no balancing lights. I'm going to show you a map, so it's pretty clear that they're wrong, they're right. That area by my thumb is my block. That area all the way around there is a flood zone. It's grazing. There's no way you can build a house there. It is immediately adjacent to my property. Again, it's a lie. And that's what the planning department are doing, manipulating the truth and lying. The planning department asked Mr. McIntosh to discredit me by including the following. The works, this is regard to my building on my block. The works were commenced to give effect to this consent. However, these failed initial building inspections. So untrue. This is another lie. The work never failed an inspection. The council only requirement for inspection was for water tightness. These inspections all passed and are documented. And I've got it here, all documented on the inspection sheet BC 1600454. All other inspections were carried out by my engineer, who and is also documented. There was no failed inspection. Again, the next paragraph lies and says the project failed to pass initial inspection. This is totally wrong, unfair, made up, just pointed to the hearing panel.
Colin, I'm sorry, we've hit 5 minutes. Can you give a quick wind up at the end?
Yeah, I'll just go and say, it just goes on to say that they put in words like cherish from the people that are opposed. They never use the word cherish in their documentation. Another word put in by the council to influence. The plan is, it's a case of the tail wagging the dog. But they just do it to their own, what they want to do, and they'll manipulate. They don't present facts, they push their case forward.
Okay, I was conscious of time. Councillors, questions for Colin?
Yeah, Worship, I do.
Thank you, Neil. This is Neil Gillespie, Deputy Mayor.
Colin, I'm also the chair of the council hearings panel. Wasn't involved in your particular application, but as I'm sure you'll appreciate, there's a number of, I guess, judicial type regulatory procedures that have to be followed during the process. My question for you is that when you received notice of the decision, you had the pointed out the right of an appeal under section 120 of the RMA. Did you proceed with that?
Well, you're referring to the fact that we go to the environmental court in 15 days.
Yes, yeah. I'm just asking, did you take up the right of appeal that you had?
No, I couldn't afford to go that far.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
That is part of the planning department's goal.
Well, I think just to respond to that and try and help your understanding perhaps is that the panel's powers are as the decision maker, and through the process the applicant, submitters, the planning consultant all make submissions to the hearings panel. The decision is the panel's. The council doesn't tell the panel what to do, can't tell the panel what to do. So I think that some of your assertions are probably without foundation, and the panel makes the decision as it's empowered to do, and that the best opportunity you had in terms of the decision being declined was to consider the right of appeal. I think the other points that you've raised, I'm sure that the council planning staff and the chief executive have taken them on board and will address them as they see and determine appropriate. So that's hopefully that helps.
You didn't understand what I said at the beginning. I said I was not addressing the panel's decision because I've gone to the NZPIA regarding that. I was addressing the council, the administration of the council, and how they process their other people's resource consent applications. It's not being done fairly, and it's not being done honestly.
Okay, any other questions, councillors?
I just clarify, I understood fully what Mr. Faulkner said.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Colin. Appreciate your time. Now we're going to move on to the confirmation of the minutes from our previous meeting, which was the 20th of March, and also the extraordinary meeting of the 28th of March. We'll take them in one go. I'm not going to move them because I wasn't there for the first one, but somebody
I
will.
will, Your Worship.
Thank you, Neil, and seconded by Martin. Any discussion, councillors? No? Then we will count that as being passed. Thank you. On page 18, you will see the blurb on your declarations of interest, and you'll need to step away from any decisions in which you may have a real or even a perceived interest. And that brings us to page 22, the 2024-25 annual plan draft budget, consultation document and supporting documentation. Saskia Vibhuti. That's it. Righto. Welcome, the floor is yours.
Good morning, councillors. We're delighted to present the draft annual plan to you this morning for your approval to consult. So I'm just going to hand it over to the Virgie to take you through a couple of the key items.
Thank you. Thanks, Your Worship and councillors. I take your report as read, Your Worship, and just perhaps just take you through the key points. That's all right. I will repeat what you all know and we've said before is that this has been a very, very quick process. So ordinarily, you would prepare reports. The first workshop council had on the numbers was 20th of March. And in about 2 days, we were going out to the boards to present the information there. Ordinarily, you would see that come back to you, and then you would make your decision at the subsequent date. All of that is coming together now. So I don't know, there are some numbers that have shifted since from what the board would have seen as well. I just want to say up front that we picked up on all of those. If there's something that's probably additional today, but in the final council numbers that you see, they will always be up to date as of today. Overall, the context and the environment is that across the country, and we had a discussion before, across the country, the economic conditions are facing headwinds. There is significant increase in all areas, and that's what we are seeing in our costs. So, not to pick on waters, but to pick on waters, there is significant increase, like costs of delivering water services have gone up 3 times in the last 2 years, which is a significant increase. And in terms of what's affecting your 21 rates increase, primarily it's coming from workers, transport and waste, and we know the reasons around that. So a lot of it is to do with compliance and regulatory issues that we have to deal with for safe drinking water. And then, of course, around transport, it's about resilience. Around waste, it's around sustainability. So that's what's causing the 9.9 million rates increase. Like we said, about 80% of that, 81% of that is coming from those services. The rest of it is simply cost increase. What staff did and what you all looked at in terms of the workshop and directed us to do was to prepare a budget for this year that was absolutely bare bones and essential only. We haven't had to go down the path of reducing services, but that is overall, that's the context in which you prepare your long-term plan. These cost increases are here to stay. The regulatory and compliance matters are here to stay. They are only going to get more stringent. I do want to add that there has been an incredible amount of work that has gone into it, considering the fact that when we added waters in and looked at it in February, we were talking about a 45.6% increase in rates, which this council by no means is an exception when it comes to that. Across the country, that's what councils are facing. So that's the overall context of it. I've given you the overarching rates increase number, where that's coming from in terms of the services, and cost increases are professional services, contractors. It doesn't matter where you look, we've got cost increases everywhere, and that's what's reflected here. Oh, and so that's it in terms of the numbers in front of you from me. I do want to point out one area that we picked up on, which is the capital expenditure table that went to the TIBU report. Wasn't the correct expenditure table, and I don't want to make any excuse, it just wasn't the right one. There is we sent out the numbers in there in front of you now. The capital expenditure figure we gave the TV report was 88,000, and it's actually 116,000 for the coming year. And the table in front of you shows where the variances are. In terms of any impact on rates, capital expenditure that's planned for a particular year has interest depreciation. That's the impact on your operating costs, and usually that flows into the next year. So even if you went back to 88K, remove some of the costs in there, that would not have any impact on the rates. Or if it did, it would be absolutely minuscule. It wouldn't actually. So we've let the board know about that, Your Worship, and steps forward that if they would like to discuss that further, they can come back to us. But in front of you today, as council, are the numbers. I also just want to add that what's in the overarching numbers is the 116,000. It is in the PTA, so that the right numbers are in there. That's it. From me, Your Worship, happy to take any questions.
One thing from me, we are acutely aware this is a huge increase and is going to impact members of our community. So what we have done is improve some of our website content to point people in the direction of the DIA rates rebate, which is low income, pretty much retirement. We're also going to do a bit of work on supporting the community, like with direct debit and what like. So we are working with local community service providers on that, and we have had some meetings already because it will, for some of our community, this is going to be a significant difference. So doing anything that we can at our end to get some of those concepts.
Thank you both. And there's no question that this is an increase that I never thought as mayor I'd ever be looking at, and I'm sure the councillors feel the same way. But we've made, I believe, the responsible decision not to put things off for tomorrow, not to cut depreciation and therefore make tomorrow pay for today's usage and things like that. This is a very honest budget, and it's a hard one. It's a very hard pill to swallow, but I'm at this stage satisfied that there's not really much meat left on the bone to par off. And next year with the long-term plan, that's when we'll be having a very close look at whether our levels of services are right, whether there are things that we can be doing without. That's going to be the conversation for the community next year. But the situation, the offer from the government to take an extra year for the long-term plan came at a very good time for us, and I think it's still the appropriate one, given even now here in April we don't have full clarity over the funding for the Three Waters. So I'm very comfortable with that much of the position at least. Councillors, questions? Let's just stick, we won't look at the consultation document yet, we'll just stick with this for now.
I guess I don't have any questions, Your Worship, but I think it's important to recognise how we got to where we are, because the why is very important to understand, and especially for the community. And without wanting to be a parrot to what you just said, the reality is that we are where we are, and I think you used a word that I think is very crucial to this, is the honesty of what we've done. Short of cutting services, we don't have a lot of options left here. And I think we're going to have an honest conversation with our community and hopefully help them understand why we're proposing what's being proposed. I'm really looking forward to what feedback we get that might actually say, you didn't think of this, because I really hope there's something out there that we might have missed, and I'll be happy to have that pointed out to us. But other than where we've got to, reducing levels of service, we are being honest about it. And we also come from a background of the last several years where we have done our level best to, I guess, put off today, perhaps. And every time we've had those conversations, we've said, we are putting off until tomorrow what's here today, and eventually it'll catch up with us. And I think that if everybody was totally honest with themselves, not in the community in particular as well, to look at it and say, that's what we do. We do it to ourselves and into our own decision making as well. So a bitter pill for us to have to swallow. I would love to be able to say I found the silver bullet to this, but I can't. And you know, I think that that's a matter of keep doing the hard work we've done to get to where we are, and we will through the long-term plan next year, as you say, look at those bigger picture issues. So yeah, more of a statement, obviously. I haven't got any questions because, like you said, we've been through that. Staff have done a really good job, and yeah, we'll see where we land ultimately.
Thank you. And just to add to that, I think it needs to be read in the context that if people go to the Taxpayers Union Ratepayers report for 22-23 financial year, which is the latest one they have, CODC for average residential rates is still near the top of the bottom third. So you look at the places under us, and they're generally not high growth, places such as Central Otago. That's for average residential rates, and average business rates, we're 54th out of the 57 that are reported. So there could be, and it's no consolation to people who are facing a major increase, that we have been a little bit frugal in this as tomorrow has come its catch up time. Now, questions, Tamer.
I just had a couple, and I did want to, same as you and Neil have done, highlight under that graph on page 25 that 81% of our rates increase is coming from water, wastewater, roading, and waste, as in rubbish, as Vibhuti highlighted, and making sure our water is safe to drink and then proving that it's safe to drink is a large part of that. On page, most of my questions have been covered off, but the page around, bring it up here, the bank fees that went from $900 to $4,000 for BCB, did you have an answer as to what that had come out of?
Yeah, so that was through your worship. That was a bank fee that was all getting collated under a different cost centre. So it was just right sizing the distribution of it. It's not that particular account has gone up.
Thank you. And there were a couple of the boards had a substantial increase in the courses and conferences tab. Can you just cover off what sort of conferences and courses that would account for?
I want to start by saying one thing is that when we were going through this budget this time round, I'll start off at the end first, sorry. Overall, the conferences and courses budget has not gone up. So when you just compare it with what it is in current year to next year, it hasn't gone up. What we did do is wherever we found anomalies, and we've tried to right size it within cost centres. So that's where that's impacted various boards differently. And it is like you picked up, it's in bank fees, it's in the likes of training and conferences, and it is in a couple of other areas. Without actually looking through all of the detail of that, which we do intend to do over the consultation period and see if when we've done that right sizing, we haven't inadvertently done, unintended consequence. We look through that, but overall the costs haven't gone up. It's just which costs they were hitting and where they should have, and we've just brought it into the right places.
One of the things that I had a question about, which I guess might come through in the long-term plan, is the development contributions for water connections, which are currently a lot of disparity between them, and water is a districtised thing. Is there the potential through the LTP process that might be looked at?
So legally, we can't. They have to be applied to the scheme. So if the developers do a big development in Alexandra, for example, we have to consider what implications of growth on Alexandra supplier and levy development in Alexandra for that growth. We can't rationalise the cost district. I have considered trying to do that in the past, and so I have that legal advice.
No, that's wonderful. Very handy to have. Thank you.
Nigel.
Thanks. Just looking at the table on the operating costs, corporate overhead,
What page, Nigel, please?
page 23.
Thank you.
My question is just what corporate overheads have gone up by 35%. Could you just give an explanation of what drives corporate overheads, what they're made up of?
So corporate overheads, in this instance, and I do have to say, we've sliced and diced it slightly differently. In this instance, corporate overheads are, all internally to the level, so it includes finance, it includes IT, which is where the cost drivers are. Yes, that's it, really, under that, governance, IT, finance.
Right, and so they're just straight increases in those costs.
So some of the significant, that some of the significant costs are now IS delivery, so that's the cyber security, and we've seen quite a jump in the Microsoft licensing fees, so that's been shown through the corporate overheads there.
Thank you.
So, just one more point, if you go to page number 24, so it's a continuation of the table on 23, which breaks it down by group of activities. If you look at that last activity, which is governance and corporate services, that's the one mostly that falls into corporate overheads. And you can see that's the activity that's had a 24%.
Yeah.
So that's in that table, that's where it reflects.
Thank you.
Sally.
I've got actually just a little typo on page 37. It says polar tree removal instead of poplar tree removal.
The attention to detail this council's got, isn't it?
Sorry. And I did have some other questions, but they've been answered.
The staff thought no one would find that, Sally.
Sorry.
The staff thought no one would find that.
Stuart.
It's a bit of a statement, really. I just think it's, if 81% of our cost increases come from the fundamental part of our job, it's a big pat on the back in the times we're in for water, wastewater and roading, because that's our core fundamental business and that's what we're doing.
Yes. Any other questions? I've got a bit more of a general question for the duty, but I might come to that second. I want to ask councillors their views on the Cheviot board and the Vincent board increasing their grants budget at a time we're going up with a 21% rates rise. And the Cheviot board doubling their budget. And the Vincent board increasing theirs by a bit.
It's such a small amount, it's $1,000. It's nothing.
8, wasn't it?
8?
8 there.
8 for Vincent, and
And 5.
9 for Vincent and 5 for
Well, Chile have got an exceptionally low base.
So the numbers are very small for an $8 million business. I just wondered if council are comfortable with the optics, the the messaging of those.
We struggle to try to get our budget up sometimes around for the projects in the Mini and Toto. I think it's good if we can try to, in the tough times, there'll be a lot of groups that are really struggling to survive and keep going. And in a lot of ways, we can fairly distribute that grants budget where it's really needed and targeted. So I'm all in favour.
Anyone got a contrary view?
I just make the observation is that ultimately the community itself are the ones that are going to pay it. It's Stu's last comment, Martin's, the other people are going to need resources because it's drying up everywhere. This will be a clear test for the community to say, does it want to support itself? And they can make a choice about this, whereas most of the other stuff, they got no choice because the power bill went up, because the contracting cost went up. They don't get a choice. Here they actually get one. So, I'd be really interested to say, well, brave, bold, the community can say whether it's right or wrong. And the good thing is we get a chance to revisit.
Yeah, true. You're going out to consultation. Thank you. I thought there was a conversation we're having. We'll go over the consultation document while we're sticking with the budgets. But Davey, you're going to use the word veteran, but you've been through a number of LGPs and over a number of councils, which is very useful for us to have an outside view coming in. I'm just wondering if you've got any comment to make on any particular challenges we may have here, particularly with our governance structure, with our boards and so forth. Is there view you'd like to share while you've got the floor?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I would. I genuinely believe that this council is in a really good place in terms of its governance. And I would like to say that to the ratepayers of Central Otago, actually. There is a lot of rigor that goes by the councillors. I want to say staff mostly always do it. So, but this council genuinely puts in a lot of effort to look at what is most vital for the community, what options are available, and just the rigor around it. And I think the attention to detail, which has been mentioned just earlier, is incredible to see. So I do want to say, looking from the outside in, that I think the governance is really good around that. These are really tough times for a lot of communities. And so therefore, in particular, it is important that governance scrutinizes. And you are, the pulse of the community. So I really do want to say that, because, I've only been here for 2 minutes, so I can see the difference. So I want to say that to council. Thank you, Worship. Yes, we do have some challenges in terms of the work ahead and for the preparation of the long-term plan. All of you do, and the staff does. There are a number of things that need to be looked at to see how this can, all of the increases that are coming, all of the changes that are coming through, how they can be sustainably managed. So I know the team here is awesome, and there's going to be an awful lot of effort put into it. So to the Central Otago ratepayers, I think I want to say that they are lucky to have council like this. Thank you, Worship.
Very kind. And thank you for the work you've done. It's been very, very, very useful having you come in, and that extends to the whole, obviously, the finance team, and it's beyond that. It's all staff at all levels have done a huge amount of work, and I know I've come back here occasionally late at night, or I'm here early in the morning, and it's very rare to find somebody not sitting around in that department. So we really appreciate everything that's been done. We can turn our attention now to the consultation document, just noting that any minute now, so the new version is going to arrive, but that version simply has some different colour schemes and changes to the shape of the outline of the graphs and a few wording changes, and everyone would be, I'm sure, glad to hear a much better photograph of the CEO and I. It don't look like mobsters, which is, to be encouraged. But working with what we've got, councillors, in that document, is there any questions or comments? No.
Glad you're running it.
Worship, it has been printed off right at this minute. So what we will do is make sure there are copies for you all to have a look at, given that it is going to go live on Friday. And if there are any changes later this afternoon that you'd want to see, we can incorporate those. So we will make sure we actually get the one that is going out for consultation.
Okay, so if there aren't any questions on, essentially the wording and so forth, other than some editorial changes will be the same. If there aren't any questions on that document, then let's turn ourselves to the resolutions, because there will need to be a reflection, I think, of the Teviot budgets. Have we got some words for that, Elaine?
Yes, I've been prepared, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, and the other thing was about the hockey turf.
Oh, yes, there was too.
Yes.
Yeah, and what we're going to do about that.
Yes, so in the draft community budgets that were part of this paper, there was 200,000 set aside for a grant from the Mahi Community Board. The MCB decided to defer that decision to the LTP and reconsider it then. So we just need you to note the Mahi Community Board has elected to take that 200,000 out of this year's budget.
That, just to check that 200,000, that's not going to make any difference to the rating examples or anything like that, because it's just a clarity.
It's already out of your overall budget.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. All right. Anything we're missing in those resolutions, folks? Any further discussions on them?
Yep.
Yes, Neil?
I just wonder why in B we're agreeing in principle. I think we're resolving this. I'm not sure. Is there some special reason for that word.
Because they may be changed after consultation.
Yes, that's a fact. I'm not bothered, but if you're happy to leave it there, but it just seems agreeing in principle says, well, no, actually at this stage, we're proposing this as a draft. If no one says nothing, that's likely to be what it is going to be. It's not in principle, but that's just me. You're the lawyer, you've got words.
I think the fact that it's got draft before the annual plan bit, the in principle is probably a duplicate we can do without. I'm happy with that. Agrees the council specific budgets.
Two, or just
Agrees
That agrees that council specific budget.
Just take out in principle. Then it's consistent with what else we're saying in C and how the language we normally use.
Yeah. And I think maybe that subject to minor editorial amendments needs to be at the end of D as well, because the supporting information. No, cancel that. Just realised what it says.
Actually,
Any further business?
yeah, I'm just wondering, because you just sent me down a path here. You said about D and E and the adopts part. So why aren't we adopting the draft annual plan?
Because we have to adopt the consultation document that's going out, but you're adopting the draft annual plan.
Yeah,
You're adopting the supporting information for the consultation document. You generally don't adopt the draft.
okay, cool. Right,
Yeah.
I'll shut up.
Anything else, Ben? On that basis, as they are on the board, A, B, C, D and E, I'll move them and I'll ask my deputy mayor to second that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried, and again with deep thanks to staff who have put the mahi in to get us to this point. Much appreciated. Community vision and experience, Councillor Ali, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And as we are awaiting,
Yeah, still waiting.
yep, that's fine. So we will move please to item number 24.5.4, freedom camping enforcement options. Welcome, Gordy and David.
you. So as the report says, in December last year, we received a report on freedom camping, and that recommended that we monitor the freedom camping over the past summer to see if we had enough, one of the better word, issues that we would need to adopt a freedom camping bylaw for. It's been clear over the last summer that we haven't had very many issues at all to deal with formally, and we've had some informal ones which haven't been counted, but the biggest issue for the council and the number of complaints we had was over some homeless people staying at this pond and dog. So that's good, but by the Freedom Camping Act limits what we can do under its regulations for people who are homeless. So that's good that they've moved on. So given that we haven't had a lot of issues over the past summer, I still don't think we've got enough evidence to be able to go out in public with the bylaw, but we haven't really got the problems that the bylaw would fix. And I'm recommending that we perhaps push that out for another summer to see what happens and see if we get something different. We are aware that Lynn's have, you will be aware, Lynn's have those sites around Lake Dunstan, which have caused a few sort of, I guess, side issues for council over rubbish and stuff, and we're meeting them next week to talk through that for the upcoming. Which is great. Other than that, the council does have, under both the Reserves Act and the Freedom Camping Act, have ability to do infringement notices for different things without having a bylaw anyway, so we can deal with low level issues if we need to. But if we get swamped, sort of like Queenstown has in the past, then we would need to have a bylaw, but at this stage, I don't really got that. So, have you asked any questions on that?
I did just wonder, the grant that we've got from NB to assist in that investigation if needed, is there a limit to how long we can carry that for?
Not that I'm aware, it said, two seasons ago we could carry it forward, so I don't think they've asked for it, what they're asking for it back, so we can carry that forward, and I can double check with them, and I was going to double check with them.
Any other questions? No?
And a comment I make, Simon, is when I first became here, my first summer was just frequent camping. My inbox, my phone didn't stop. And been a couple of years, I think, since anybody's run. So it's, I support the direction we're going in, that if we haven't got too much of a problem, why go to significant effort to fix it?
Especially as Gordy says, there is the ability for us to deal with complaints on a one-off.
Yeah, once you have a bylaw, I guess you need to start enforcing that, so there's that enforcement cost,
An
which
additional
would need to be factored into that.
And I was just going to comment as well, I mean, it'd be also interesting to see if this government changes anything with the Freedom Campaign Act as well, so it probably would be better to see if we had another year, it would give us a bit more time to see if anything's changing in that space as well.
That's true.
We did hear Minister Ducey, as Minister of Tourism, speak at conference a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and freedom camping I don't think was mentioned in your call, so I suggest not.
Right. No other questions or comments? No. I just asked Wayne on recommendation C, can you just change it from development to develop? Yeah, the further division to develop a freedom camping after the April 2025 council meeting. Somebody happy to move those recommendations? Thank you, Tracy. Seconded Sally. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Long may we continue. And we will now move to the request. Yeah, request for Minister of Conservation's consent to easement over recreation reserve. Welcome.
Morning, everyone.
And Gareth.
Okay, so I'll take the report as read, and the purpose of the report today is to consider granting Minister of Conservation's consent to the granting of an easement over Lot 8 DP 492123, which is part of the Alexandra Town Bell Recreation Reserve. The easement is to be in favour of 2 degrees. 2 degrees and Wireless share a site just down in front of the Northern Reservoir. So you can see a plan of that on page 226. The reservoir is, it'll come up the Legan driveway around the back of the reservoir and then down front to the telecommunications site. There's not really a lot to say otherwise. Does anybody have any questions about that?
They're not.
Sorry, just with the, so an easement can be, I guess it's just that legal question, an easement can be granted to a subtenant.
Yes, so the easement.
That's okay.
Yes, so the easement will be granted to 2 degrees in gross. So they will hold that right over the land.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing about that is that it doesn't matter whether they're the main tenant or the other tenant, because it's going to be in favour of them over the land as such. The benefits of it, I guess, is with the original tenancy, which would not be with the party that would be now. The original tenant hooked into the reservoir power, and the reservoir has been powering the site, and we've been recovering that. But of course, unless you put in cheap printers and you start reading and going through the processes like that, I guess maybe it could be equitable, maybe it might not be equitable, but having the specific in favour of 2 degrees and the 2 parties have an agreement to run that between them, maybe it could be that 2 degrees might become the site owner in the long run or something to that effect, but the easement will be over the land.
Thank you.
So when it does, just with the recovery of the power costs.
Yes.
Yeah, are you saying that 2 degrees will we will recover the power costs from.
So we have been recovering power charges based on what we estimate the site, the telecommunications site will use. So there was quite a lot of reports on this, went backwards and forwards when we were setting up the original tenancies. And you may remember that we went through a process of trying to work out, we had an engineer, an electrical engineer, try and estimate what the infrastructure on the pole would use, and then we decided an amount per annum to collect in as well as the rent. So once this is up and running, we'll just collect a site fee, and then we don't have to worry about those additional costs and whether we're actually providing for them enough, and there will be no effort in it because it will be between the two of them.
Okay, and I know it's not the subject of this report, but just for context, the lease agreement is reviewable 3 yearly, is it?
So I believe that the lease agreement is due for review in July next year, and in conjunction with that, we will update the agreement in the period to no longer recover that, because it will probably take them all of that time to get that all sorted in. And so we will stop recovering the power, and it will be purely the site rental that we've been.
And as my memory right, there was considerable discussion about a commercial. Did we actually give them?
So this site is the one site that actually makes what the true rental should probably be, because it was the original owner of the site put up quite a good argument as to why he believed there was one rate and why council believed that there may be another rate. So this site, I have to say off the top of my head, I think it makes about $6,000 per annum. Which is an appropriate amount of rental, and I would suggest that the other sites, which there are either 3 or 4 of them, I think one may have been cancelled off the top of my head, that on review we would be looking for that to reflect same amount of value that's in this site.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further questions. Can I have someone to move recommendations A and B? Thank you, Ian and Cheryl. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. We now move to page 206 and welcome Ants Longman and special guest bring questions to give us a report on the destination management update. Instant.
Everyone, thanks for the opportunity to update you on the work around the Central Otago Destination Management Plan and the work streams Tourism Central Otago is involved in. In terms of background, so it's now over under 2 years since we went through the process and signed off on the Central Otago Destination Management Plan. So with that, we've been looking at how do we balance our workloads around the marketing and management of Central Otago as a business destination and how that's supporting our community's ambitions. There was hope that central government was going to support some of that implementation work, which hasn't been forthcoming. So that's where we've had to really look at how we're working within our budgets to enable parts of the plan, and that's what the report outlines some of the activities we're doing towards the building blocks in the plan. In terms of a bit of industry insights in the report, you'll read some stats coming out of Stats New Zealand around spend. Data in the tourism industry has become a very hot topic because of the lack of it. And several of the key sources of information we've used have actually ceased to be produced over the last 8 months. So if you look at the stats we've got in there, that's for the year end March 2023, based on the International Visitor Survey. So we're looking very much backwards in some of that information that's available. In terms of positive news, the government has invested $5 million in some additional new data sources through the Tourism Data Leadership Group, which will be coming by the end of the year. So we're looking forward to that, and that's also going to have a strong focus on how tourism impacts on communities and be regionalised data sets rather than national. And that we've also got the information that we commissioned for Anderson Associates around the perceptions of Central Otago as a visitor destination from those domestic and Australian market, in which we've seen some really positive responses, especially in terms of those who have been to Central Otago and the experience they have visiting our communities and staying with all our different hospitality accommodation businesses, where we've got a positive score of +44 on a Net Promoter, -100 to +100 in terms of how many people are advocates for the destination, and it's considerably higher for those who have been to those who have visited Central Otago in the last 12 months. So those who have experienced our place are very much moving into that advocacy space, which is what we want to see. Other key pieces in that data space is really looking at where those coming in and spending in our district are. So it's across the full spectrum from accommodation, hospitality services, but also looking at retail, fuel and things, which is supported by a lot of our key markets, drive markets, so Otago South and Canterbury, and then nationally Auckland, that's our biggest market. The return of international markets is also significant, and this is where we've seen, I think we saw rebalancing post-COVID in the last 12 months, that the international markets have come back in, and those businesses who focused in that space have fared better over this summer. A softer domestic market, which has been seen nationally with, as you've just been discussing, the annual plan, rising cost of living, inflation and things like that, the softer market and these people travelling around. So those who invested some of their time and work with us to make sure they get that international market have seen those benefits. And shortly I'll invite Glenn to kind of get that operator's perspective through the different hats he has, both here with the businesses from the gate, but also sitting on Hospitality New Zealand, national hospitality market. In terms of some key pieces in our work streams, we've seen with the Destination Management Plan a lot more collaboration with different council departments, which is fantastic around different projects and being involved in those. And one of the ones that's really exciting to see progressing and being able to be in the room as that evolves is the Riverside Park development, and how we can work across council to kind of give that visitor lens and how we can make that Alexandra that special place to kind of tell the story of both of our district, our heritage to our visitors in our community, and then the work that's being done with Okata and Mana to bring the stories, cultural stories to life through that as well. So that's a pretty awesome piece. We've started looking at some efficiencies in our own systems, so we've just upgraded and moved to a new CRM system for our email database. So that's been a long-term project to make sure we're meeting the requirements of privacy and IS requirements around where all our data is stored. So thanks to Nathan for his support in getting through that process. And then the other key pieces that we'll continue to do is really looking at our partnerships, both direct with our local industry, with Central Otago business events and other programs like that, where we've got partnership or pay to engage work where we're going out to market specifically in some of these industries, and our businesses are contributing towards the costs and going to market and bringing events. And a recent example of that was the Sustainable Trails Conference in Cromwell, playing off our strengths obviously with trails, and bringing in people from across New Zealand, Australia and the Pacific Islands as well into Cromwell for at least 4 days of the conference. And so that's the work that Andrea leads, and seeing a lot of new opportunities coming in that space. And in the coming weeks, we've got some national business events media coming to the district as well to learn about that. And then our Trails Marketing project, which I think everyone's aware of. So that's a collaboration between the 4 regional tourism organisations, Destination Queenstown, Youth Coast, Dunedin, Fuka Development, ourselves and the Trail Trust. So that's continuing to build, and we've just had all the contributing partners, the RTOs, signed up for another year of funding for that shared role. That's also has a contribution comes in from Rail Trail Business Network as well. So that's really helping us position the wider Otago Trails Network as that destination for a cycling holiday domestically and Australia. And then the Southern Way initiatives evolving, which is the 8 southern RTOs south of the Waitaki, and how we encourage that longer stay, low impact itineraries, and working in alongside the Southern Airports Alliance, so Dunedin, Queenstown and Invercargill. And there's some projects coming in there that are really exciting that haven't been done before, but I can't share just yet. But that project we're heavily involved in, and Sam I heard who works also in our touring network leads that piece of work. Other key pieces just to highlight in there is a report, and we've just got a final version this morning, which we'll update you on in the future, is looking at some trails forecasting and how the extension of the trails network, some potential high, low, medium growth scenarios, what that may mean as we get the Kawerau Gorge Trail connecting Queenstown through to Bannockburn and other parts of the trail network, what pressures, what opportunities that may put on both where do we need additional parking or toilets and things like that, parts of the project that aren't responsibility directly of those trail trusts, and where there's opportunities for investment from different businesses as they look at what those numbers could be. So that's an exciting piece of work, and that we'll be sharing that with industry at a Trails Forum in Cromwell on the 16th of May. Anyone is welcome to attend, afternoon the 16th of May. And then moving forward, some of the key projects at the end of the report that we're looking at over the next year is continuing to work with the Regional Identity Advisor and Okaha around integrating more of the mana whenua stories through our digital platforms, and making sure that we're utilising some of those significant cultural stories and telling that story of place through those channels. Continuing with those key partnerships of Southern Way, the Otago Cycle Trails collaboration, and the Southern Lakes IMA with Queenstown and Wanaka in terms of, especially in the US market, how we're represented there without having to go to market ourselves. Supporting some of the council projects like the Riverside Park, and then one of the new ones that we've got in there that are focused on is MB, or the Minister announced a regional events promotion fund. So this is a new fund available to the non-gateway regions. So it excludes Auckland, Hamilton, Christchurch, Wellington and Queenstown from the fund to support the marketing of regional events. It's a co-funding initiative based on leveraging the existing marketing spend of an event to hopefully bring in additional visitation to the district. So if we have a short workshop, we'll drop in with several event organisers and had some other chats. So we've probably got about half a dozen events that are definitely looking to apply to that. There's probably another 5 or 6 sitting on the sideline deciding how beneficial that is to them in terms of that marketing piece. So we'll continue to look at that and how we can support our events industry. And the final piece of the puzzle moving forward is that wider funding of tourism and the impacts of and where it sits. So making sure that we, as council, as Tourism Central Otago, are involved with and understanding the opportunities for alternative funding to support our visitor industry. That takes some questions now directly to myself, or pass to Glenn to give.
Does anybody want to ask any particular questions now?
Rail Trail has been collaboration between Dunedin regarding the train. Have those conversations been had at our level, at our side?
We're not directly involved in any discussions with the train, but we've been supportive of the trust and their work. So the Rail Trail Trust had commissioned some additional research to support those discussions with DCC as that evolves. to my understanding, that it has all been put on hold, so they have also gone into the enhanced annual plan process, and so they've delayed those train discussions for another.
Do we have an opinion on it? Or do we rely on the trust to have their opinion on it?
As an organisation, I don't know if we have an opinion on it. I have a personal opinion.
Especially from the view.
I know, I guess the real risk of the rail trail is with the train not going, the business technically could stop it, wipe out.
Yeah, and we're currently seeing the numbers on the trail reflect that currently, and that's the information we're getting. The trail data is the counter in Wedderburn is the most reliable of all of the rail trail counters. And so we're actually trying to convince NV to invest in new counters on the rail trail. And that report that I talked about earlier around trail forecasting, that's one of the key pieces that comes out of it, is we don't have accurate enough data for several applications.
So it's hard to get that data because you've got two-way traffic, a lot of it, in the sense of having full data, the only one you get will be Wedderburn. Of trail data of the complete tour.
We're seeing, especially since the opening of the other trails, people are experiencing our travel networks in different ways.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more hub and spoke, things where people will do a Portland Gorge one day, then one day on Lockwood Gorge, one day on the Lake Dunstan Trail. So that importance of making sure that the rail trail in its entirety remains there as that key bucket list experience is really important. And so to do that, we need to make sure that we have these partnerships with the likes of Dunedin and look how we can influence what levers we have for doing things. But
because the risk is that the rail trail experience runs away. We have food outlets stopping now. That the experience has been a 25-year experience is diminishing, but it still could, I guess I'm talking about forecasting a lot. And Ranfurly business meeting the other day, they were very concerned about the lack of business being done. But yet the population Ranfurly passes Ranfurly every 6 to 7 days in the main part of the season. So, the real risk.
Yeah. Lee.
Hi. I'm Glenn from the Gate. Just thankful for the opportunity to come down to support Ants and Dylan and the rest of the TCO team for the work that they do, not just for businesses like myself, but also for Central Otago, because without them, we probably wouldn't be in the tourism position that we're in at the moment, because the big operators would side off and look after themselves, and the little operators would go missing. So I just want to acknowledge and thank them for the hard work that they do. The Gate is an interesting property. So I've been there a long time. I arrived in 2005. Commonly known as the Golden Gloves, Flying Jugs, and no one really knew that we had accommodations. So over that time, we've evolved into what we are now. And this year, we chose to invest approximately $2 million into a new restaurant and reception. We've also built property on the site to bring out retail and to become that Gate hospitality and tourism sector. But it is a hard journey. It's a hard road. We only started getting back to pre-COVID in the last quarter of this financial year for us. It was very hard up until then. However, we've had a very good summer to see the increase of our Korean market. We're basically running 10% up in occupancy and 10% up in revenue, which is fantastic for us. We're confident that we'll see, not in the next couple of months, but hopefully through into 2025, and narrowing of the shoulder seasons. So the summer will extend and the winter will come early, and particularly out the other end, we'll see the increase of traffic. So September and October will merge, and we'll get back into that December, January period a lot quicker, which is great for us. That's where we were pre-COVID. We went very well. The battles that we still have are going to be with our food and beverage outlets throughout the region. Food and beverage is a very tough industry at the moment. The cost of living is seeing people tighten their belts. To give you an example, butter is just through the roof. Blue cod, we're not even entertaining purchasing blue cod. It's just something that we just can't afford to put that onto our menu. So there's a lot of pressures. It's the first time that I've ever had to look at changing my menu as regularly as I do. rather than just doing it seasonally. So it's a tough battle out there. We are having, so to give you an example, so across our businesses, we employ 100 staff. We're having trouble of finding appropriate staff, experienced staff. I think you'll see that we will be reliant on transient staff. That's how we'll have to run all of our businesses with a tourism operator. And therefore, although we invest time and money into training, it's going to be interesting to see whether we can offer a service standard that we need to offer in Central Otago. So these are the battles that we have. Business South have some good courses out there. Hospitality New Zealand is working hard to bring courses through Central Otago. So we're just encouraging anyone that has staff in the hospitality to get them in there. I'm not sure if you've been to the local cafes, but you know, if you can employ someone that's over 16 years of age, you're doing well. So that's the real battle that we have. Accommodation is an interesting one. We're still going to battle accommodation and short-term accommodation. For those businesses that aren't in a position to purchase property, they're going to battle. And I think that's something that we're going to look at long term. We're in a fortunate position. We've just secured a 6-bedroom house for the gate, and we'll be able to use that to manage our staff through the summer. So we're very excited about that. Immigration, a lot of challenges with immigration. I think what people aren't understanding is that our rate is going to be driven, if we want to have an immigrant working for us, our rate's going to be driven to 31.66. That's going to be the starting rate. So unfortunately, I've had to deliver the news to 4 staff that I won't be renewing their visas. So it's quite heartbreaking because we were in a position of retail, hospitality, and a few other sectors where you could offer the $26, $27 mark. Our business can't manage the 31.66. So it's probably the worst part of my career that I've been involved in, have to break that news to the staff. Events and conferences, you know, we've been very strong. We've been proactive. Andrew and the team have done a great job, but unfortunately we've lost a large conference in May, so it was due to come. Unfortunately, they've said that we're not going to spend the money on accommodation, so they're going to conference in Auckland. So the people that are attending those conferences will get home to their own houses. So I think it's a signal that we need to be mindful of. Also, interestingly enough, in the last sort of 8 weeks, we've seen a huge increase in requests for sponsorship and support of events. So this comes down to we're a non-profit group, so we would like to use your conference rooms, but we can't afford to pay for them. Again, putting us in a hard position because we have to pay for those conference rooms. Even sitting empty, they have a cost for them. So unfortunately, we're saying no a lot, which doesn't sit well with us. We take our corporate responsibility quite seriously. As a company, we sponsor pretty much everything, but now we have to look at everything and take that into account. And the hardest part is we have to look at all our offerings, food, accommodation, everything. We have bottle stores as well, and we have to look at it weekly now. We're looking at our offerings and how we operate weekly. But that's the doom and gloom. There are some wins to it all. We're very excited. We're heading up to Trends with Central Otago in May. Unfortunately, I'm not heading up myself, but it's going to be great. We've got a good stand. I think we've got a good product. We've got a good region to sell. And although we have to weather some storms, I think we've got a good team going up, Bill and Anson, that will really promote the region and promote our individual properties. I think we're lucky with a couple of the larger players, Highlands, for example, choosing to go to meeting and events. They get to spend their money promoting our region. So I think it's a bit of a win-win, and we need to acknowledge that. We had a Harley-Davidson conference, 580 Harleys in Cromwell last year in November. That was brilliant, and they've just confirmed that they're going to come back in 2025. So we're quite excited about that, because I'm not going to lie to you, it wants to print money. Our corporate clients are still travelling. People ask me, my corporate clients, yep, they're my truck drivers, they're my bread and butter. They spend about $60 on a cut lunch. They like to have breakfast, and they'll add an extra steak instead of an extra egg to their meal. So they're still tracking. So we hope that industry stays strong and that they keep coming through. we know that if we start to see some of our corporates or our truck drivers or our reps starting to go out, blow out to not every second week, but every month, then we know that we're going to get into a bit of trouble. So we're looking forward to that. But again, I just want to take the opportunity to thank TCO. They manage, 9,900 square metres of tourism. It's kilometres of tourism. It's a big area and a diverse area. So we're looking forward to seeing what will bring the new trail down from Queenstown. I think, my personal opinion, if we think the Dunstan Trail was successful, this one will blow that out of the water in my mind. But I'm biased, but it's looking great. We're looking to reinvest some more money into our property. So we've got 17 rooms that we hope to do in the next 12 months. And then we'll look at opportunities to jump onto that trail as well and what can happen there. So it's exciting times. Thank you.
As a bit of kind of crystal ball gazing with your New Zealand hat on, how long are you sort of indicating to businesses in Central Otago, those ones that are doing that tough, especially in food and beverage, you just have to get through X amount of months, or is there kind of a silver star floating somewhere up in the future that we can hang on for this time?
Interest rates will be an interesting one. So I think if we see a drop in interest rates, I think that'll have two effects. One, the businesses will be happier, but then people will travel. So now they're predicting middle of 25. I believe that we can get through to, we'll have another good summer. I have no doubt that we'll have another good summer at the end of the year, but then we have to get through to the following summer. So the problem is we need to control the cost of living. I don't know how you do that. And we just need to make sure that we're promoting our own region. So if we stop the spend on promoting our region, then no one's going to come because they don't know we're here. We're very easy to drop off the radar. The stats, some of the stats, and Anthony can correct me, is that some of the barley was very popular for the Australians this year. So we want them to be coming back this way. We want to have Queenstown have a massive dump of snow every day would be great, so it can go through the media. Because let's not lie, once Queenstown's full, that comes through to us. I mean, they're still the golden egg for us, so we need that snow to go through and get that publicity.
I think another big point to that is it's very expensive to come from Auckland.
Yeah.
Cost is now coming on the rail trail. It was very dear to bring our family down to Auckland before, mum and dad and two kids. So people's prices become massive, and a lot of them drive and then go back to profitability. As long as we got $31.66 an hour for wages and the holiday time, Anzac Day, no staff on. People, it's too expensive to have those extra public holidays, and then cost of living. And we had trends down the other day doing it. They asked. The question was how much sponsors we get. We start writing the list out. Businesses are getting sick, getting drained, and they go, "How much are you going to sponsor for Tourism New Zealand? We want to come and stay at your accommodation." I said, "No." No, you're right. At the end of the day, it's driven down. Businesses are getting stuck dry, but it's cost of air flights and just cost of doing meals are not cheap. So it's a pricing now.
Could I just ask, Glenn, just clarification? If you've got people on working visas, where does that hourly rate of 31 come from?
Set by government. So
it's not just living wage, or is it?
No, living wage is 24. 26. Yeah. If I could get someone for $26, I'll be happy.
So okay. So they're sitting in. Again, and just further to because I know TCO has had this big concentration on pulling people out of Queenstown over into the Cromwell Basin and then further through CODC. And you think that the bike trail, once it goes through to Bannockburn, is going to make a difference there? But are you seeing an increase? You said when Queenstown's full, you get the spillover, but are we actually on a longer term trend pulling more people out of Queenstown? Or does
absolutely. The trail will pull people directly out of Queenstown into Central Otago. They'll land in bike, my opinion. Queenstown, they would have done Queenstown if it's the domestic market. So they'll land in Cromwell and, land in Queenstown and they'll bike through to Cromwell, bike through to Bannockburn, come through to Alex. It's, I'm very positive about it, and we've discussed it in the past. I just think that it's we're positioning ourselves to sort of get heavily involved because we just think it's That's, we're,
Yeah.
just.
Okay.
And I read another growth thing, that you've touched on it before with the motorbikes. Any horse industry, we have these massive people travel with them, used to be cavalcades and stuff like that, but the car rallies and bike rallies, where they're going through to Car, whatever, there's huge road traffic, our touring route, especially in our corner, got to take more of a sheep over the road, there's a lot more people travelling on our roads that are there for holiday purposes or social events. Yeah, and the Weatherbury pub crawl, they leave Queenstown, they go to Dunedin, the rugby or whatever, and they take 3 days to come home. So sort of, it is a lot more road traffic, and awareness of Central is a lot more than ever before.
Yeah, sorry, can I just come back to Nigel's point as well? Just, in years gone by, it had been us versus Queenstown. What we've seen since COVID was actually we're in a real partnership with Queenstown, and it's intentional, it's an alliance that we're a part of. It is Queenstown promotes us, we promote Queenstown, and we win. And that's really important definition to understand, that it's no longer Queenstown that we don't want to play with anymore. We're actually good mates. We work with them really close.
I think, obviously this, you've really highlighted that squeeze that's going on private business to support this sort of thing. Are there any other funding models in the pipeline, recognising that some of that government kitty has dried up for tourism? What's coming through for RTOs or councils to support that work?
So there's not really any change across the country. That's not true. There's one notable change which we are keeping an eye on, and we're interested to see how this rolls out. So the Rotorua District Council have put into their long-term plan, so they've gone with the long-term plan option. They've put into their long-term plan that they are going to commercially rate any short-term accommodation business that is available for more than 60 nights per annum. That's a key difference. It's if you've made your space, your house or whatever it might be, available through Airbnb or whatever system you use, available for 60 days, you're essentially operating a commercial business and you'll be rated as a commercial business. Now, we've spoken with our colleagues in the Rotorua RTO. That is actually primarily driven because of the social housing issues that they have up there. And it's to say, you know what, you're actually, that's the word I was going to use, but you're taking advantage of a real challenge we have here, and you're not recognising the challenges we have within our own community. So we're going to commercially have you with a commercial rate. The money that they raise is intended, will go back into the RTO Economic Development Agency, whatever it is. So we're watching it. We'll see how that rolls out. We don't know what that would mean for us if we could even do it, but it's a conversation we'll have, and we'll have with Lou and Saskia and understand what it might mean.
And just going back to being collaborative with Queenstown, because they are pushing for a visitor levy.
Correct, yes. So yes, Queenstown have a piece with central government, where central government in theory has given them the authority to levy as a bed tax. They haven't, I guess, used that lever yet, and there is a broader system conversation going on around actually the whole country should start looking at introducing some levy against all forms of accommodation and others. So Queenstown haven't pulled that lever yet because we're seeking actually a system-wide approach across the whole country.
Have you got a view on that?
Well, yeah, I do, because they're tagging it, wanting the accommodation providers to deal with it. You don't go to Queenstown and stay at a hotel, so there'll be other bogus things.
So that again.
You don't go to Queenstown to book. You don't go to Queenstown. The first thing you book is your accommodation. You go and do an activity. So don't pick on the accommodation providers. You've got to, everyone. Pick on everyone.
That's exactly the point I was going to make. I mean, it's our own money that built our hotel and Neville Grub and those things, our accommodation, that we get penalised because the council trying to raise funds for a tourism operation. Now, the reality is you pay GST, you pay tax, you pay every other levy there is. You can't just keep hitting the business owner. And but I do have a sympathy that you take a lot of Airbnbs that are contributing nothing to the industry and taking the cash, but you go to Rotorua, you'll probably some will be affordable housing issues where the government are putting long-term tenants. So it's very hard to administer. But I don't think you just
No, there's a fair bit of work I'm involved in through my role as a trustee of Regional Tourism New Zealand around this kind of system change approach to the broader tourism system, and funding is a really key element of that, right? And when we talk levies, we're talking about essentially a tourist tax that, you know, if you go to Singapore, you go to Las Vegas, you go to all these places around the world, that is what you do, right? It's a plus on your bill, and it wouldn't just apply to hotels, it would apply to Airbnb. Airbnb have said, yeah, we're on board. If you can get this at a national level, we'd sign up for it as well. So there is work afoot. It's getting central government to move in that direction. This is kind of where it sits at the moment. And the minister's been open to having a conversation, Tim. I know you heard from him the other week in regard to these things, but yeah, but a slow moving beast, I suppose. It's not quite moving the speed we would necessarily like it to. But done well, levies would then come back into being able to go back to the region where the money is generated, which then relieves some of the pressure off the likes of local government who are having to build infrastructure, not just for their residents, but also for their visitors. And you only have to look at the likes of Naseby and the visitation they get, and the infrastructure we have to build there to cope, not the resident population, but actually the visitor population, because that expands the whole.
But that's the nature of Central Otago, isn't it? You know, look at Clyde, the number of people who are absentee, Naseby's exactly that. Yeah, and that is, but the worrying part, I think, at the moment is that we've just got to make sure these businesses survive. Yep. We're only worrying about paying a levy, and you look at the businesses of accommodation, food, businesses on the rail trail, there's not many left. And there's not many of them aren't for sale. You know, and with the high dropping off and middle marks are struggling, Lauder or, you know, Omacow's lost a hotel. It makes it very hard for infrastructure. So survival is probably the key for the next 18 months before we're about living.
And that's, I think, where, you know, that short, medium term promotion marketing is really important, as well as taking that long term thing. The other piece in the funding, the one mechanism we might see change on, not directly to us as a district, but there might be opportunities to come out of it, is the international visitor levy. So that's currently charged on all international visitors, excluding Australians, coming into New Zealand, and the minister's said he's considering increasing that at least in line with inflation. So it's first time it's going to be revisited in 5 years. The funding from that half goes to tourism, half goes to the Department of Conservation. So
Why? Department of Conservation.
That was how it was.
That was how it was initially set up, and I suppose it's true, right? New Zealanders come, international visitors come to this country. Key part of that is the Department of Conservation statement that they're visiting and spending time on. Now, sometimes they're paying through an operator to go and use that. Often they're not, though. So it's a way to capture some of the impact that international visitors are having on the docks.
There's no fun in the tax take.
Yeah.
We could go around and round in circles.
I was going to ask about that international visitors levy, because half goes to tourism, but TIF's, the Tourism Infrastructure Fund's gone now, right?
Sure.
So where is our half coming? Where is that half of the 35 grand? What's the feed for that now to come to us, or is there not one?
It doesn't come to us directly, but there are other programs that it supports. So Anne's mentioned before around the data program. So India is funding a new $5 million, is it? $5 million fund towards developing data sets for the tourism industry. That's come directly out of the IBL.
But the TIF was way more than that, every funding round.
Sure.
So where's that? Is the government just banking it? Is it feeding in, not necessarily to us, but to where it was going, to fund the tourism infrastructure fund, to fund that stuff?
At the moment, there is no.
Because we're getting told there's no money overseas, so where's the money going?
Into our health system and education system.
It's supposed to go to tourism. Yeah, but how do we get our share, and how do we determine what our tourism numbers are visiting our region, if there is a fund?
Well, so there isn't a fund that we can access as a region, right? But this is where the systematic change that we're talking about would actually make sense. And if there is a levy that is applied that is then returned back to the place that generated that income, then it can be distributed to help offset those costs. And that's what we're aiming at.
And I think another piece that's interesting we're seeing is a lot of the government investment in the tourism industry has either been decreased or repurposed. So NZ's Cycle Trail Aim, so the Great Rides Network, originally had an 8 million, which has never been inflation adjusted budget for their maintenance and enhancement fund. That was a line item in the budget. 5 million of that 8 million is now coming from the international visitor levy. So they've actually made a cost saving and chewing up some of that money over here, which wasn't for their original purpose. So we're seeing some parts of that funding in the government budget savings where they're actually dipping into that other pot for purposes that wasn't necessarily there. This new regional events promotion fund again is coming out of that funding pot as well. So it's these initiatives that weren't necessarily asked for by industry or they're repurposing. It's kind of just keeping up with that. Tourism New Zealand themselves have had a phased budget cut put forward, which they're advocating in the budget. So we're waiting to see if that will be reversed by the current government, because that happened with the previous government. And if that investment comes down again, that's the New Zealand being taken to the world on a much lower budget. So a very competitive environment, especially at a national level.
Thank you.
Has Rotorua been able to get the data on Airbnb accommodation?
So answer actually has better than I do. There are a couple of online platforms that essentially you can identify who those or where those properties are. They are then overlaying that into their own GIS system and then able to capture it in that way. But hence, the system better than I do.
Yeah, so there's a couple of platforms that pretty much do a data scrape across your online booking platforms, and can identify the number of properties in an area and pinpoint it. We've had a quick look at some of the sample data for it for Central Otago. Having to go into actually spending money to get the data, but we'd potentially be looking at between 300 and 500 properties at least across the district that are in those systems. Some of those are potentially already being charged some form of commercial rate because anyone can be on those platforms. So there's still a manual process to take that data and then match it into your own GIS systems and or rating database, and then figure out actually which properties have the appropriate consent permissions requirements, and is there a change there. So it is, as Dylan said, it's a bit of watch this space, how it actually rolls out for Rotorua. If that gets adopted.
Will that information be shared to IRD as well? Well, I mean, if we're all gonna pay $31 or $33 an hour, everyone has to be totally legit, holiday time, everything like that, when you get a cash cow running everywhere else.
Once again, the system levy change thing we're talking about, that would open up that.
It'd be great to keep us posted on that, please. Thank you very much for coming along here.
No problem.
I'm happy to move that report be received. And Charlie, you would like to sit down? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carries.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Statement, that's now over to Stu for Rogan.
24.5.6, stuff on that proposed unformed legal road. Linda.
Welcome. Gareth.
Welcome.
Morning, again, morning, good morning.
Just.
So, let's finish up the morning then. I bring you an application to stop 1900 square metres of unformed legal road adjacent to the intersection of Rivers Street and Hindon Street, Homacare. The applicants live at the eastern end of Hindon Street, and they have spent a bit of time actually already occupying and beautifying the area. A plan of the chunk of unformed land in full is shown on page 233. But the parties who have interests in the recreation and amenity values of the area have agreed to a stopping of just less than all of the land that's outlined in red on page 233 in favour of the plan that is shown on
page 235. So 235 shows a 7 metre wide carriageway being retained between the road proposed to be stopped and section 13. This will mean that the public can retain access and walking down to the river and water behind section 13 and the road that the applicants have proposed to stop. Because it is not a forward stopping, we propose to stop the road pursuant to the Public Works Act. And on that basis, the applicants would pay all costs associated with the proposal. And in conjunction with the stopping, once that is done, we would like them then to apply to the roading department for a licence to occupy the chunk of road that is shown circled in red on page 236. It's an area of the road that won't be stopped at this time, but it will clarify their right to occupy that residual area. So I think it's probably everything. Does anybody have any questions? No.
You want to, no, thank you very much for that. We'll go back to the recommendation.
Move the recommendations.
Right.
I'm quite happy to move the recommendation.
Press second, those all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against carried.
Easy peasy, thank you, Stu. Page 239, fraud, bribery and corruption policy. Amelia, kia ora, welcome. And Saskia. Floor's yours.
Thank you. Well, now that Lincoln's finished the morning, we'll start the afternoon. So the fraud, bribery and corruption policy has undergone its 2-yearly review. And we've made some changes to the policy just to clarify people's responsibilities, and that includes adding in elected members into the policy. And that just recognises that actually we do hold responsibility for identifying and reporting fraud, bribery or corruption if you were to spot anything. And we've also ensured that it's really clear what the process is to be followed, depending on who might be involved in any of these situations. The track change copy is included with this report. That track change copy includes a highlighted section that was added post audit and resubmitted, so that just reflects the comments that were made there. There will be some training slides that will be released to staff on adoption of this policy, and the underlying process will also be amended to align with this policy. What we have done is extended the date of review to 3 years, so that will take us to 2027, and that just reflects that this policy is built on well-established principles that are unlikely to change in that time frame. I think that covers most of what's being amended, so I'll take on the questions.
Can I just add from the audit and risk committee members that the key change that Amelia and I did add in that wasn't discussed was on page 257, and that would be if you suspected myself or the GM of HR. Obviously, we don't want to be reporting it to myself or the GM of HR, so we've just added that, and then you'll see there a highlight that obviously would go to Peter there to manage. We'd be explicit around that. Yeah.
Thank you. Questions, councillors? Doesn't take away from the importance of this stuff, and we are absolutely blessed in New Zealand that we have zero tolerance to fraud and bribery and corruption. I was overseas last year, and some of the stories that, you know, when we got talking to locals that you heard about were their normalities. You know, there was one chap that got through to a very good job, and got told, "Yep, it's yours. You just got to give me $20,000 US." That was 2 years' wages, and it just, and certainly we didn't tell anyone I was a mayor because mayors are really wealthy. Anyway, I won't say where I was. So this is important stuff. It's something that we will need to be. You know, fraud starts with a $5. You know, it doesn't start with $500,000. It starts with $5. So zero tolerance, and the policy of that is crucial. No questions?
No.
On with A and B, someone second it?
Yep, I'll do that.
Stu? No further comments? All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye, against, carried. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. Page 261, the use of artificial intelligence. Before we begin, there'll be no jokes about use of intelligence. I knew it was coming, so we'll just stop you.
I didn't even thought about it.
Preemptive stew.
That's right. That's why they're out of intelligence to keep up with the guys like me.
So we jump through to our financial policy.
We could go to,
Financial
next,
report.
I wonder
Yeah.
if my colleagues could.
Finance.
269, the finance report, period ending 29th of February. Sure, they got. Well, yeah, it's all yours now.
So tax paper is being read, as you've noted, the report being the financial period we discussed in the 29th February report. For the first 8 months of the financial year, there's actually an overall unfavourable variance of $353,000. With income having an unfavourable variance of $3 million. The main driver for that unfavourable variance is due to the land sales that have been budgeted for that just haven't eventuated, and I believe being reprogrammed as part of the LTP. So without that, we are actually sitting relatively well, with development contributions remaining high, along with the reserve concessions and some profit on sale of assets from road stoppings and the like. Expenditure has a favourable variance of $2.7 million. Again, there's the cost of sales that relate to the land sales, of course, having eventuated, so that looks like it's better than it should be, but it's about on par with what our budgets are saying. With staff, professional fees, contracts, reviews, recycling and other costs being behind budget. And depreciation, grants and interest expenses higher than budget. Capital expenditure has a favourable variance of $14.6 million, with 35% of the total revised budget being spent. At the time of writing this report, the Cromwell Memorial Hall project had been removed and moved into the 24-25 and the subsequent years in the LTP, while the Cromwell budget hadn't been adjusted at this point, and it will be adjusted in further conversations within the next financial report. Internal loans are forecasted to have a closing balance of $4.3 million for the financial year, and our external loans provided to our community are forecasted. They have a current outstanding balance of $37,000. The council's external debt is still sitting at $25 million, against land external debt balance of $17 million for the year. We're using our current operating cash flows to reduce the impact on the external debt cost. And most of this debt is in Three Waters. There is a balance of $19 million that relates to the Cromwell Master Plan, and that will be moved and adjusted as per the annual plan and subsequent LTPs when those projects are deemed to begin. And it's all I've got to say. Any questions?
Questions, councillor? Hannah.
The better off funding for the RFID at the libraries and the Alexandra renovation, is that only able to be picked up once those projects are completed?
I believe it's as the project goes along the way, those claims at certain points of the project.
Okay, perfect.
And just maybe for the council's awareness, for you, your worship. So we received a letter from DIA. It was alluded to in the government's changing policies, local water done well. But they're relooking at better off funding that's been allocated across to all councils across New Zealand. And so we've received a letter from them regarding the money we've allocated. We were allocated the money we've spent. That money that's yet to be spent and assigned to various projects. What they've asked is a response by us. I can't remember. We have a little bit of time to look this up.
again, is it possible that you can repurpose some of that money into free waters? But well aware that councils have entered into forward contract and forward arrangements, which preclude them from breaking them. So it's cast in the terms that we just have to work our way through it. If there's an area that has an understanding of the free waters, it's probably more than likely then that we would have to repurpose that. But we're still yet to work our way through that, and then we have to respond in due course to them.
Which we would, wouldn't we?
Oh, yes, well, in this case here, because they've directed it, we have to go back to them with our response. They'll then look at it, and then they'll come back to us with their response.
Because effectively at the moment, we are only government subsidy on the free waters if we did have.
And we did spend
A chunk of it.
a chunk of that money on three water space anyway.
And we are fairly committed in our federal funding project. So the last one to sign up, which Peter recently signed contract work for the Alexandra Library renovation. So we'll sit down with Peter and go through it, but we're thinking there isn't a whole lot of uncommitted foundational projects that we can fall back on. We're anticipating a slight surplus. We were going to bring you a paper, which we have pulled from this agenda in light of that letter. We were thinking there might be around 90k surplus. But on the basis of this letter, that would sensibly probably go to offset one of Julie's projects. But we'll bring that back. Hopefully waiting for the next council meeting to bring your paper around that.
Correct.
Just clarify, so that, initially there was water stimulus money. So all of that money got spent in the free waters, and then there was a better of money. There was a tranche one, with a potential of tranche two, and when you're talking here about here's the tranche one, which you've already allocated to non-free waters. So none of that tranche one money was spent.
So there's no suggestion that they're trying to claw back money, it's just repurposing.
Yeah, if we have surplus funds, I expect the pressure will be on, and rightly so, but the money is diverted into the free water space to pay for work back. Yeah.
On the bottom of the capital expenditure table at page 274, we're currently tracking at 35% progress for CapEx spend, and we are rapidly approaching the end of the financial year. What are the implications of potentially not even getting over 50% of what we plan to spend?
So what we have done for this annual plan, you're done as well, is we have taken a look at our CapEx programs and rationalised what we are going to spend this year, this current financial year, in terms of carrying forward, because it does impact our interest costs. So we have taken a good look at that, because of course we don't want to be having programs of work that we're sort of signaling might go against our debt when we're really not going to do that. So we have done that as part of the plan. I would like to do that.
And it's still part of work in progress before we finalise the figures for the annual plan. Is to ensure that our debt levels are sufficient and that we are going to be able to do projects, and whether they need to be removed or still we do actually need to allocate those debts. And also the timing of uplifting this debt and ensuring that our interest and repayments are set at the appropriate levels.
What have been the barriers to some of the projects not even starting yet? Is it staff? Is it capacity? Is it timing?
I'll just, one example is the Cromwell Temple. It took us a while to make a decision, and so we were probably forecasting to spend $1 zillion on that in this current annual plan, but we haven't. And so that's just, and that's a large chunk of change, but we're now going to have to push back into the next financial year. So that's just an example of a particular project that has a considerable chunk of change assigned to it. And these things just happen.
We've got another couple, the Alex River Park, that come in as you're aware of the budget. So the team had to go back and re-scope that and rethink that with the trust. Omenpho Hub is another one because of the planning and the UX got to. So we have had a few across the organisation, capital programs of work for various reasons have been delayed. I don't know if any of the Gs want to add.
But that. So in the three water space, the projects that will be carried forward that haven't progressed this financial year that are budgeted to have more work completed are Cromwell's water treatment plant, the new water treatment plant, so they'll have running carry forward. We didn't start construction yet. Lake Roxburgh Village is waste water treatment upgrades. So it's, we've got to get resource consent for that, so we've been working through issues on that, but anyway. And then there's some carry forward related to our water meter replacement program. We're trying to nail down whether we look at smart meters or go with the same meters that we currently have, and that's around the ability for that IES interface that's required.
More money. There's a kind of thing,
What is it?
a lack of.
All the cost of all.
More questions, Tim?
With that water space, running the technology would be quite a cost compared to running the way we're doing now, would you not?
Yes, it is. It's very complex. It's not nice and simple. Hence,
But the system of it now is relatively simple.
it is.
So with that, I know technology seems to be a wonderful thing.
Exploring, making sure we adequately explore the option.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Right, on that basis, if somebody wants to move the recommendations, thank you, Tamer, seconded. Sarah, thank you. Further discussion? All those in favour? Aye, against, carried. Nathan, welcome. Thanks, Donald.
Afternoon.
This intelligence, eh?
So I'll take the report as read in terms of use of artificial intelligence policy. So the policy highlights risks and provides some guidance on how to utilise artificial intelligence appropriately. The policy has been put through the Audit and Risk Committee, and I've made some changes from that review for with the assistance and association to users, which broadens the scope to include the elected members and staff and contractors. Additional roles and responsibilities in association with implementing this policy, and also the breach of this policy. In terms of the implementation, we will be undertaking user awareness and training, which will include elected members, and adopting an approved AI, which we're looking at Microsoft 365 Copilot as our solution going forward. I will then also be reporting on the implementation of the policy through to Audit and Risk as well. Any questions?
I think just one comment from me. So this policy really does recognise that there are some benefits, but we do need as an organisation to be a bit cautious with the implementation of it. Hence why Nathan has developed up this policy, just so we've got really good staff and members around the tools that we use, because it's not only sort of system protection, but it's also in terms of accuracy and information just going out into the world there. So it would be appropriate to, for example, like confidential governance reports to you all, and a source that goes out there and we can never get the data back. So it's taking an inclusive but cautionary approach.
Cool. Stuart, sorry, I was just going to add this point. If you go to page 266, there's a guidelines section there that is very simple to understand.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Sorry.
For probably a computer illiterate person, or just illiterate in every other case, how do we know we break a policy when we don't even know how to understand the scientific part of AI? It's a bit like being scammed, and some of it, how do we know? I guess the problem is it's like scamming. How do you know you've been scammed? In an article the other day, artificial intelligence and gets into our own businesses, gets into our counselling knowledge, when it's a risk, obviously.
Yeah. I guess that comes down to that training and awareness side of things and making sure people are utilising the tools appropriately, and particularly using the tools that we are.
Or understanding.
Yeah, probably understanding is a good bit of terminology, yeah. And that's just broadening that knowledge really across that whole organisation. It's not an easy feat.
No, and I guess that's a real worry to someone like yourself, when you're actually doing your own work, doing your own thing, and it's like you feel like you're real risk that you may.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, as staff members providing information to elected members, that's probably key at making sure that, you know, we use the tool appropriately, but that we've got our own set of knowledge and experience going across what the AI is recommended. You know, it's a useful tool, but it's not always going to be completely right. You've got to use your own knowledge and experience while we're doing on a day-to-day basis, basically. Don't want to use it verbatim as such.
Not all the staff is better at getting educated. I mean, we've had the friendly fishing emails go out, and I hesitate to ask people to put their hands up if they've done them, but okay. But you know, I did one and I went, oh, that's pretty basic. And then 3 days later, somebody contacted me on LinkedIn and had a really well-written piece about why they wanted to get in touch. And the only bit that made me go, was I was the near of Otago, not the very central Otago, you know, but they were saying my family used to holiday in Naseby and all this sort of stuff. Pure fiction. And just pluck the right bits out to make me go, oh, you know, Christians. It's important stuff in this AI. It's just
AI is going to revolutionise how we all do business.
It's like the internet part two.
Yeah, yes.
Exactly.
And it's coming to grips with the changes it's going to bring about.
Yeah.
I think it's, it can be a really good structure. So I think it could be really good at saving time for people that are doing a lot of reports and stuff. And even if it gives you a structure that you then actually put the information into, that can help you get started with something, you know, and I think that is beneficial. You're not necessarily using the information that spits out, but it could give you a starting point.
Lawyers out of business.
Well, that'd be a good thing.
And accountants. And accountants.
First we call all the lawyers. Right, in that case, this is important and I look forward to everybody attending the training because quite frank, I was happily using, what is it, GPT or whatever. To make an audit risk of don't or something. Yeah, so no, that's not yet.
We all had.
Yeah, right. Yes. All right, somebody move it, please. Thank you, Tamer. Seconded Martin. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For that. That's really crucial work. It goes wrong big time. I go on to my report, just noting we did the annual plan consultation document. Didn't mention, and I do encourage people to attend the drop-in sessions that are going to be held. I'm sure somewhere in this document, I think. Yeah. It's in the encourage people to keep an eye out for the dates for the consultation document drop-in sessions, and note that there'll also be an online one for people in the organisation.
It's just it's in the calendar.
It's in that calendar, but that wasn't, I was wanting to convey to them.
I know, and I just said to him the same thing.
No, I've got it in my calendar. So, yeah, I wasn't here last month because I was in Wellington with a meeting with the very impressive Health Minister, Dr. Shane Reti, alongside QLDC Medwin Lewis, Joe Mooney, Miles Anderson and Todd Stevenson to push for an inland Otago hospital for the beginnings of the conversation, the work that needs to be done so that in 10 or 15 years time, perhaps we will see I'm never sure of the word to use, so I'm going to say base hospital. Because of course we have Maniatoto and of course we have Dunstan who have been involved in these discussions, but there's been a lot of work getting ourselves to that point. And I just think it's, and as I made the point to Minister Reti, you know, in the month before this meeting, we'd have had equivalent population of Hamilton City between us and QLDC, and the nearest hospital was further away than Middlemore is from Hamilton. And I think the risk to the people who live here is significant, and the risk to our international reputation. And if we have, we have a jet boat crash in Queenstown full of wealthy American tourists, and they find out that we haven't really got a proper hospital. How's that going to look? You know, so there is a long way to go, but every great journey starts with one step. I talked about that road trip around talking to other councils and hearing exactly the same problems for them as we have here in Central Otago. I'm very pleased that Arconda is going to be part of our LGNZ membership. I think some of you already had a look at the free opportunity to see it. It's got some great stuff in there, and I've just got to, even after 7.5 years, occasionally say to myself, what is that thing? And you go to our corner and find the right answer. So it's very useful. Peter Tamer and I attended Zone 5 and 6 conference in Christchurch, and first and foremost, congratulations must go to Tamer for being elected the chair of Zone 6 and for the way you handled yourself at that meeting. Very unusual. I can't think of another instance in my tenure where a non-mayoral regional chair has held that role. So shows what your neighbouring councils think of your Tamer. Well done. Now we got to hear from Chris Bishop. Mark Patterson had a dinner opportunity with Transport and Local Government Minister Simeon Brown. So those events do give us really hard when you're representing 25% of New Zealand's population to get in front of these ministers. So those opportunities that LGNZ provides are massive. LGNZ also providing us now the opportunity through Mayor's Task Force for Jobs to, alongside NSD, to have a coordinator. Craig has started with us. He is taking huge opportunities, business groups, everything we can find for him to find employment, and also to find the needs, not in education, employment or training in our community. So if you know of any young person who falls into that category who could do with a lift up into work, and it can be as simple as, well, I've got a job lined up, but I can't afford the boots, let us know. Or if it's somebody who needs mentoring to actually get into a habit of going to work, let us know that as well. Went to the Sustainable Trails Conference in Cromwell, which was at the gate, and just showed there there was about answers in here. Dylan, how many would have been there? It was 120 or something at that sustainable, over 3 days, doing all the things and taking it back to Fiji, Papua New Guinea and Australia. It's pretty impressive stuff. Look forward to seeing more and larger ones on the completion of the Cromwell Memorial Hall. Been around the business breakfasts of late, attended along with Sally and some other elected members. I know Jade and Tony from the Vincent Community Board were there. The 100 years of power celebration, got to cut a ribbon on a power pole. That wasn't in the big book of how to be a mayor, because there isn't a big book of how to be a mayor. It was a great day. And travelled to Queenstown with 2 other Otago mayors and joined the rest of the crew there for a meeting one-on-one with Minister Simeon Brown. Very impressive, very young man, able to highlight the issues faced locally, Three Waters, transport, and so forth. And also, the place we were at had a beautiful view over the Remarkable, so I was able to say that those used to be covered in Wilding Pines. And if we don't put the money up to the Wilding Pines, they will be covered in Wilding Pines again, and everything that's spent will be a waste of time. Some other bits and pieces there that you'll see. Happy to answer any questions. In that case, I'll move my report. Well, there's someone was second. Stu. Well, those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you.
And plan drop-in sessions.
Yes.
You can see them on the homepage.
On the homepage for CODC from the annual plan drop-in sessions. Thank you. Status reports on page 280. Anybody got any?
I do.
Okay, we'll go Tracy and then we'll go Tamer.
Just Councillor Mark, was that what's happening with Councillor Mark?
Yes, so this only up yesterday afternoon.
Oh, okay.
So we've got a meeting with the Council Mark Clark, LGNZ, and that's in the middle of next month.
Can say where you mean? Yeah,
sorry, started. And Saskia, to figure out what that's all about, because they're going to relaunch
Had a look at it, but we received the brochure. Perhaps it's not as, doesn't seem to be as modular as we had initially been led to believe, but we'll have that conversation with it.
Yeah.
I think if we were to schedule it as a council, I think that the more appropriate time would be post the LTP prior to the election. So maybe August, September next year, because we'll put funding into the LTP. And that sort of be the frame of the discussion.
On that, would you please note that if we do make that decision, it is communicated to parties which have been lobbying us to do this?
I've met the parties.
Yes.
Regarding this, and yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep, I have that. And then also the library renovation. So if the contracts have been received and the contractor for signing and updated quotes are in, budget is very tight due to excessive cost increases. Staff are reviewing options to reduce costs and alternative funding streams. Does that mean that the contract has not been signed and will not progress until we secure money, or we're just going to kick off and then get it as we go?
Yeah, so we have signed the contract. I'm just looking for David.
He's gone.
But yes, the contract has been signed.
Right.
But it's only been signed up to a certain amount, so we just have to be. Start date for? I cannot recall off the top of my head that start date. Because I'm a certain person who I'm quite close to keeps sort of, getting a bit fidgety.
And next week. If that happens, just go, shh. The libraries, that's the.
Speaking in separate rooms means no colloquial.
Right.
The next
Because I'm
one,
still-
the Ranfurly Water Incident February 2023, page 301. For the last 4 months, we've had the update of due to the work schedule. We've not got this report.
I can tell you that, it is, I you may not believe me, but, it is in the council being worked on right now for next month.
Right. That would be good.
As a picture.
Yeah. Never come back 2 times.
I think that's my.
Question, yeah?
Yeah, page 286 has the update on the 2019 agenda item 19.8.10. It's last update's February about the NZS 4404, and it says we're waiting on funding. Did we put some funding in the long-term plan? Because it said about February about the annual plan. Otherwise, it's becoming a bit of a what's the word? Do we need to do it? I think it's getting to the stage now that we need to get on and do it, or just rescind the resolution and forget it.
So we can have a look at that for our next meeting.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Back to us with some thoughts on that, because it is quite a legacy item now, isn't it?
It's so slow.
Nigel.
So it's in the annual plan, the research, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I had a question.
Hang on, so there is funding to progress this in the annual plan, and we should be. Yeah,
I'll give you a better update.
thank you. Nigel.
Thanks. Item on page 289 regarding the proposed Alexandra Airport Master Plan, which says still waiting on further information regarding connections with Alexandra Town water supply and order to provide full overview to council of progress with development. We've got enough. I'm just going to tell you what's being said in that.
When are we getting water to the airport, Mallet?
So we had a conversation about this, it's that, there's a bit of work that needs to be done to identify what the infrastructure assets are that are actually at the airport. So we just, I met with Gareth this week, and he's now going to give us a purchase order to get the hydraulic and the green carbon for it. We're going to go back and get some proper plans done of what's up there.
Right. Yeah.
I guess I could just explain that. So the issue is that it's kind of been built as a private water supply, but when it's the council providing council with water, for all intents and purposes, it's a council water supply that needs to meet the requirements of 2 month Parliament's rules. So we just need to make sure that before we connect it up to our Uber reticulation, that what's up there is going to meet the legal requirements we have to meet. Otherwise, we'll be making a lot for it.
Thank you. So there's something happening shortly.
There is. And this has all been about managing risks around private water supplies versus council operating supplies.
And as part of that conversation, you have going too far from the resolution, the providing reticulated wastewater, is that part?
No, reticulated wastewater is not being part of that conversation, so we haven't provided provisions to connect it's a pump and main at the bottom, so you can't just
No,
hook a pipe into it.
thank you.
Anything else, councillors? You're done. Okay, somebody want to move that we receive those reports? Thank you, Taman, seconded Sarah. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Page 341 is an assortment of community board minutes that I'll move that we receive. We don't even have to do that, do we? No, it's just noting, just for noting, so we don't have to do anything there. The date of our next meeting, hang on, what have I missed?
Need to be moved to second just to note it.
Oh, all right, I'll move the note, Stu Note moves that we second it. All those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. This meeting is the 29th of May. Thank you very much. We're going to, for the reasons given on the next page, I presume, go into public excluded session. Thank you to members of the media who have joined us today. It's great to have you here. Much appreciated. So we'll just pause for a moment while we give folks time to rearrange themselves. Oh, gosh, I'll move it. Total second that. All those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Karen. I'll over for the next 6 months. That's just how it is.
Maybe.